When I left school in 1955, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had the option of perhaps qualifying to go to university, which I had no desire to do. There was another thing I could do, which was to go into a profession, be it the legal profession, the medical profession, etc. Or I could get into national service, which a lot of people did at that time. But I chose the option of seeking a professional career and chose accountancy. Fortunately, my parents knew a firm in London to whom I became articled for a couple of years, and it was a far cry then from schoolwork. A bit boring, but on reflection taught me quite a lot about the way in which business works. Remember, as a schoolboy, you haven't a clue. You're not even taught how to write a check out. So it was a good beginning, but I only appreciated it latterly. My father-in-law-to-be, whom I had obviously met by that time, had a scrap metal business here in Wolverhampton. He knew that I was anxious really to get out of just ticking boxes and numbers and offered me a position. I took the opportunity. I came up here and there began my business career proper, and it was a baptism of fire. I learnt that 8 o'clock was the start time for everyone, not 9 o'clock if you got a collar and 8 o'clock if you were a blue-collar worker. To me, I was there the same time as they were, or actually a bit before, which I found better. We developed that business quite well, but it was at a time when enormous machinery was going into some very large public companies to process scrap metal, and we were never going to get there. Hence the need to think a little bit out of the box, as they say. The word at that time for thinking out of the box was diversification. No one quite knew how to spell it and weren't sure what it was, but it was something you ought to have some of. Just how you apply this word diversification was a bit of a mystery to me, but I was fortunate to spot an advertisement in the local newspaper here, the Express and Star, where there was an advert by someone from Liverpool who had agreed to import American heating and cleaning equipment. We agreed that we, the scrap company, would become the Midland distributor for those American products. So whilst the family company provided a safe haven, the new company, Andrews Industrial Equipment Limited, was formed in 1964. During the next year of formation, we sold some equipment, not a great deal, but we at least sold some, and ordered, encouragingly, a large consignment of heaters for delivery in December, which sadly got held up as a result of a dock strike in New York. As with dock strikes, they are protected, or at least the seller is protected, so not only does the buyer have to take the product, he also has to pay for it. The product arrived in March, and we had really nowhere to go with that. No one wants to buy heating equipment in March, at the end of the winter, and I was forced to go to the bank, put a second mortgage on my house, and pay for those heaters to go into stock. During the winter before, we had demonstrated some of these portable heaters to a nearby manufacturing company who didn't buy them, but in April of that year I had a telephone call from the works engineer to say, you know those hot air blowers that you demonstrated to us earlier in the year, do you by any chance rent them out? He said, my problem is that our boilers have broken. We have 100 or 200 people that we employ here. They're getting colder. The unions aren't happy. I've got to do something. There I am sitting with all these heaters blocking up my garage. So on that phone call, with no hire agreement, an arrangement was come to whereby all those heaters went into Turner Manufacturing to get them out of their mess. They kept them for something like 7 weeks, at the end of which time we had nearly paid for those heaters. It was clear that there was a demand for temporary heating on a short-term basis. If Turner Manufacturing have a problem like this, then other places will. We coined the slogan "Heat for Hire" during the autumn of 1967, and during the ensuing winter we found that we got a real business on our hands. The home of the rental industry at that time was America. Remember, our heaters and steam cleaners came from America. So my management team and I decided that we would go and have a look at the American rental organization's annual exhibition, which happened to be in Las Vegas. None of us had ever been to the place before. We went, we met a lot of people, we learnt a lot. We came back determined that we needed a wider range of equipment to provide a full heat for hire service. A key member of my management team who came with me to the States was a guy called Eric Johnson. He was a heating engineer and he understood the world of heating products. Eric's involvement with me enabled the whole business to move to another level. We realized that finding work for our own staff during the summer was exceedingly difficult because the revenue stream of hiring and selling heaters during the winter was not there. How else do we gain revenue from the equipment that we've got to sustain the employment of the people throughout the summer? We got good people. We needed to keep those people. We didn't want to lay them off during the summer. One of the things we stumbled across, ironically, was that portable heaters, whilst with the burner on, blow hot air. Without the burner on, they can blow or recirculate air. Now, recirculated air is not cold, but it's cool. And so many of our customers who wanted portable heaters during the winter for heating were very happy to hire them again, albeit at a very discounted rate, just to blow air about. What we wanted to do and needed to find a way of doing was to extend the business we'd created now in Wolverhampton to other parts of the country, and preferably the industrial parts of the country. We needed to spread our message, the Andrews Heat for Hire slogan and all that that meant, wider and in a more complete way across the country. The way of doing it was to enfranchise existing operations with the Andrews Heat for Hire brand. So within that period of time, we are not talking many months, we had become a national entity which enabled us to advertise nationally with a whole string of telephone numbers for people to get in touch with, and a standard package for customers to know what they were going to get if they hired Andrews heaters from a local facility. That was an important step in building a network of outlets and gave us a brand which we could roll out across the country, hence the phrase local service nationwide. It had been obvious to us for a few years prior to '72 that we needed this summer activity much more seriously than just blowing cold air around the place. We had by then had the benefit of taking on board an individual called Graham Jordan, who was very experienced with the whole dehumidification products. And he, together with Eric Johnson and myself, went to Mostra Convegno in Milan in 1972 to see if we could find equipment that could be used to really cool people in their offices as well as in their small works. And that was the start of the Andrews Air Conditioning division. We have a network here of outlets. Now we're beginning to develop a matrix of products to go through those. Having realised that we have a UK business that seems to work in different parts of the UK, the next thing was to think rather grandly about, can we export this whole idea. Holland is one of the few countries that remained in Europe fairly pro-British. It has the same lousy weather that we have, and one of the American contacts that we developed was a Dutchman. He wanted to get back to Holland, and he was quite excited about the possibility of being part of a new business in Holland. Within a few months, he'd found this engineer, and together we located appropriate premises in Bleiswijk, which is right in the middle of Holland, and we embarked upon our first operation overseas. Andrews Industrial Equipment Nederland BV was established in 1971 thanks to the help of an American and a local Dutchman. Every year for the next 4 years, I used to go there every 2 or 3 months. I was always impressed with the work ethic of the small staff that we had there. They were doing all the right things in my book, but each year we showed a loss. The good news was that each successive year the loss was less. So that come the 5th year, it all clicked. We got it right and made sufficient money to offset all the accumulated losses. The message, I think, to be understood from there is, if your gut instinct confirms that what you're doing is right and the people you've got round you are right, then if you possibly can, stick with it. It will come good. In 1974, the Andrews business had achieved 10 years. Coincidental with that year and with the 10-year celebration, I'd been approached by a journalist in Wolverhampton to see whether I would be, or the company would be, interested in sponsoring an allegedly up-and-coming rally driver whose name was Russell Brooks. Russell himself met our management team and endeared himself to us. As it turned out, and the history books will tell you, that sponsorship grew to, in total, 17 years, one of the longest motorsport sponsorships on record in this country, and we enjoyed and benefited greatly from that association. Russell himself turned out to be not just a competent driver who won events, but also a very competent after-dinner speaker, which again had a benefit to us, because all the time he was in the Andrews colours, and he would be talking about his experience as a sponsored driver for the Andrews company based in Wolverhampton. It again enabled us to have access to mighty big motor companies in this country that we would never have got any other way. We did large amounts of business with Ford, large amounts of business with Talbot in Coventry, large amounts of business in Luton with Vauxhall. And that was all because we had an automatic introduction. We didn't have to work hard like every salesman does to get in the door. We were known, we were welcome, we were part of the team, so to speak. I suppose, whilst not necessarily acknowledging it, we had been developing these product divisions for some time. Now, post the 10th anniversary, it was time to elevate them to their appropriate position, so that we've got a heating divisional head, we've got an air conditioning divisional head, we've got a drying, dehumidifying divisional head, we've got a cleaning divisional head, with quite a major task to ensure that they could provide the regional outlets we've talked through, be they our own or be they the franchise companies, with a fit-for-purpose product range that could be sold, hired up and down the country. We differentiated ourselves to the outside world and the customer, therefore, by being seen as specialists in the field with a complete range of products and knowledge. Behind each of the regional outlets, there was a product division. that were steeped with technical people who had been there before and knew the best way to resolve issues. So we were a specialist hire company now, not just a hire company like any other hire shop or hire centre up and down the high street. By the time 1988 came, we had best part of 600 members of staff up and down the country, including Holland, each with their own families, which makes one feel as an employer a bit and rightly responsible. I have to say they were all salaried. We did not pay by the hour anywhere at any time. We got, I think, a level of dedication and commitment by that route which we might not otherwise have got. We had strong team spirit, again, up and down the country. We didn't do another 10th anniversary on the 20th, but the loyalty was there. And I think one of the reasons that we sustained that was we realised it was just as important to market internally to our own staff what we were doing as it was and is to market externally. If it's good enough for outside, it's definitely good enough for inside. I'm certainly delighted to see the company where it is. It does make me feel a bit ancient that 50 years ago was 1964 when it all started, but it's gone from strength to strength. It now has another name added to the name, and I think by virtue of that it's stronger too, with an extra leg within its offering, and I wish the company every success going forward for the next 50.